So we're just going to give everyone a couple more moments to get going. Yeah, feel free to jump on and say hi. Go for it while we're waiting. This is lovely. So we've got Sandra, Maria, Sammy. Give us a little wave in the chat box or let us know that you can hear us, see us, etc. Katarina's from A Small World is doing the honors of the admin tonight. So she's helping me out and letting everyone in through the lovely waiting room that is Zoom. I don't know about you, but I actually imagine now in those waiting rooms in Zoom, I try and imagine that I'm in this really nice waiting room and someone's offered me like a nice sparkling water, or, you know, like it's nice tranquil music playing. Just helps me, I don't know, set the tone or something. We've got Paresh as well. Lovely. Just gonna, so why don't you, in the meantime, let me know where you're tuning in from in the chat box. That would be great. Warm up those fingers, type away. I am coming to you live from London this evening. We have had a bit of a weird day today. We started with a little bit of a mini snow shower, which is very odd for London, let alone for the middle of April. Then it went to beautiful blue skies, and now it's kind of not sure what it's doing. So I've had my little foot heater on. We've got Budapest and Paris. Oh, I love this. I love it when everyone's from all over the world. So great. Our you know, Aussies might be sleeping, but at least all over Europe, US, UK. If you haven't picked up already, I am Aussie originally. That's where the crazy accent comes from, but I am in London and I've been here for many years now. All right, we've got Francis as well. Okay, so I'm going to give people like 2 more minutes. We'll give them the 5-minute grace period for Monday evenings, and then we can get started. Lovely. Where are you tuning in from, Robert?
Switzerland, between Geneva and Lausanne.
Oh, lovely. I've actually been to Lausanne just for a day trip. I have a friend who's based in Zug, so told me it was very beautiful, and I had to go and visit, you know, see it when I went to see him many years ago now, actually. Ben connecting, great. So I'm going to pop that onto Phil's screen. Now, let's get started, shall we? Why not? Let's do it. So a little bit of housekeeping and admin, as is you know, fun to do at the start of these sessions. First of all, I just want you to know that you know, the session is a little bit different to maybe some of the other webinars you've been tuning into recently. It's purposely built to be a discussion, to be a conversation. I want this to feel fun. I want it to feel easy. I want you to kind of step out of the session tonight and feel energized at the end of your Monday. If you have ever met me before or been on one of these, you know, calls with me, I love discussion, right? I also love to talk. So feel free to pull me up, to like jump in the chat box and say, hang on a sec, I want to know more about that. Ask lots of questions, give, you know, get some interaction going. And if you are in an environment where you can or would like to turn on your videos, and I do love seeing faces. So I know that doesn't work for everyone, but if you would like to, please turn on your videos. It's so nice to see you. Otherwise, something that's a little bit different to other webinars as well is you do have access to your own microphones. So feel free, if you are wanting to, you know, chat directly or ask a question or something, feel free to unmute yourselves. Sorry, something's just changed. I'm just going to rejig my screen here. There we go. Yeah, I can see you. So yeah, feel free to unmute yourselves, or just like give me a little wave and I'll call you out so that you can speak. Or if it's easier for you wherever you are right now, go for it in the chat box. That's cool as well. Hi, Carla. I've seen you've joined now as well. And Ben, I spotted, popped into the room. Great. For those who I can't see videos, you know, give me a wave every now and then. Jump in the chat box, give me an emoji, just something, you know. I just want to make sure that I'm keeping you awake and not asleep tonight. And that would be great. So tonight's session is we called it like a fireside chat, a book club come fireside chat. Carlo's tuning in from Italy. Awesome. I love it. We've really got a lot of countries represented now. This is amazing. Because we wanted this to feel a little bit different, right? Was anyone around for a webinar that I did with A Small World last year where we talked about freedom from busy? Does that ring any bells for anyone? Doesn't really matter if it doesn't, but I was just curious. So last year, we really started to dive into this topic of busyness. Who here has ever experienced a touch of busyness in their lives? Yep, some guilty smiles. Yep, got some thumbs up. Good. And it's one of my favorite topics to talk about and something that I teach. Now, I'm a joy coach. So in some ways, you might think, what does busyness have to do with joy? Well, a lot. And we may just kind of tap into that tonight. So the idea is that I'll share a little bit about, I guess, why I'm here, who I am, and you know, a little bit about my story as well. But really, I want this to be an open discussion. It would be great to hear from you all, like what drew you into this session? Why is busyness on the top of your mind? You know, what is going on for you in your life right now? And if it feels great to you, we can absolutely jump into some strategies, or we can, you know, I wrote a book recently called Freedom from Busy, so got that on hand, i.e. the book club, and we can kind of dive into different sections in that if that's helpful. But it'd be great to kind of be directed by you all as well. So, as I said, I talk a lot. So a couple of little pointers and then we're going to dive in. I'm going to treat this as if I am in one of my coaching workshops, as if you are in a private coaching session with me. And what I mean by that is, you know, really to encourage you all to feel safe here. I know that's a kind of weird thing to say on a webinar, isn't it? Hope you feel safe. But to really, I guess what I mean by that is to just trust that there's no right or wrong. You know, I'm really coming at this from a judgment-free space. So I encourage you all to do the same for yourselves. And how that shows up in this conversation is, if you're curious, if you've got a question that you feel a bit like unsure about, if a thought popped into your head, if you're suddenly like, I've got a story to share, I just really want to encourage you to go for it. Chat box or take yourself off mute. This is a conversation. Is that cool with everyone? Yeah? Okay, got a few smiles. Excellent. And I want one of those thumbs up badges. Is it Natalia? Have I got the pronunciation?
Yes, hi, it's Natalia. Yes.
That's amazing.
Nice meeting you. You need to, I guess you need to, I just inherited those from Tony Robbins' workshop.
Amazing. Well, bring in some of Tony Robbins' energy tonight, then, because it is a Monday. Any questions before we keep going? Everyone seems pretty good. Great. So I have not introduced myself yet. I am Danielle Brooker, as my little name tag says over here in my Zoom box, and I am a joy coach. Now, I haven't always been a joy coach. The shortest way I can give you an insight into my journey or my story is that I had a really amazing job. I did very well at it. I got promoted quickly. I loved the people I worked with. I loved what I did, but I came home crying every night. And I had migraines and I had digestive issues. And I thought all of these little things were just separate issues that I needed to take care of and kind of fix so that I could get back to doing what I did really well. And after an experience of actually having to fully step away from my job, I thought, you know, I'll take a 2-week break and everything will be resolved. And that 2 weeks led to 6 weeks, which led to 8 weeks. And that burnout period wasn't I can't sit here and say to you, oh, you know, and then I went back and everything was magically okay and I changed jobs and now I'm free from busy. But what that experience did teach me is it was a really deep turning point in having a conversation with myself about how I was, I guess, showing up, like what it was that I was prioritizing. Why was it that I felt, the only word that kept coming to me was I felt so stressed. I didn't even associate with the word busy. A lot of people at the time would say to me, oh, you take on too much. Why are you doing this? And I would just push back. I'd be like, no, this is what I do. Don't tell me to stop. Like, I've got this. I can handle this. And I wasn't really connecting the dots at the time as to how much that behavior had, I guess, stopped me from doing what I really wanted or what really fueled me or brought me a lot of joy. So it was a long journey. I didn't really just kind of go to bed and wake up and everything was okay after that. But what started to happen, and another big turning point, is I started to ask myself what would feel really good. And it started really small, like those few weeks away from work, going for a walk, having a coffee by myself. And there was this decision that I made to move from Australia to London that had been part of a dream I'd had for, about a decade, but had just never done anything about it. And something about, I can literally remember the moment. I was at work, I was working overtime, I was also studying my master's part-time. And so I was at work kind of finishing off an assignment and getting some work done on a weekend. But instead of doing all of that, I found myself, Googling all of these other things, right? Looking up, well, what could this look like? Why don't I just say yes to some of these things that I keep putting off and saying I want to do? Some travel. It started with a trip to Kenya that I'd always wanted to do. And I really, had to get to that heart of that question of, well, if not now, when? And the London trip at the time was still wrapped up in the career, was still wrapped up in the busyness. And yet planted within that was the seed of, this is something that I actually want. This isn't about anybody else. This isn't about necessarily, doing the next right thing to get promoted or anything like that. It was about, well, what would make me feel good? I'm going to leave it at that and kind of leave you hanging, and maybe we'll get more into the joy side of things in a moment. But that really opened me up to realizing how much our patterns of behavior can keep us from experiencing what we really want to experience in our life. I used to run lots of workshops on work-life balance. Has anyone ever attended a workshop on work-life balance, or read a book, or like looked up a blog on being like, how do I get more balance, right? It's like this magical utopian world that we imagine that one day if we could just get the balance, then everything will be okay. And in these balance workshops, I would, naturally attract really busy, burnt out people. And they were coming for a bit of a reprieve from that day-to-day life. And I would say to them, why are you here? Like, what is it that you're wanting? And they would say balance. And I'm like, okay, well, what does balance mean to you? And then they would say, oh, well, I just don't want to be really stressed. Oh, you should meet my boss. My boss is a nightmare. Like, really, like, well, go on to that. And it was always about, I don't want the stress. I don't want to manage my boss. I don't want the late nights. And I would keep saying to them, okay, but what is it that you do want? Has anyone ever had that experience of like, you keep saying you want this thing, but if I stopped you right now and said, what is it you actually do want? Could you answer the question? Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, do you want to share, Natalia? Go for it.
Oh my God. No, it's just like usually my life is like, I don't know what I want. It's just a quick, if I may.
Please, go.
I've been working, actually, I was born in Ukraine, like yourself, elsewhere, but I had been living in Holland for 29 years now. So I'm just a gypsy, sort of. I've been working in all kinds of different international companies with the different branches, which I enjoyed. But I've been working as a PA. So I'm just always laughing like, okay, I'm a babysitter of small guys with the big egos. And in reality, it was great, but it's not really what I wanted to. So now just like, I know what I want to. And I think I'm going to that strategic area where I want to be. However, there are so many obstacles. And the balance is like, I'm thinking like, okay, I'm in a balance, sort of. I am just like physically, mentally, I'm okay. I know what I want, but there is some kind of non-balancing situation happening.
Yeah.
Which gets you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. And I really hear that a lot in terms of people who feel like, that you're at the point where you're completely stuck. Like you identify that you don't want to keep doing the thing that you're doing, whether that's because you don't like it anymore, because it's just, overwhelming, or because you just don't want the lifestyle. Like there's many reasons. Mm-hmm. But then why do we stay stuck and not make the change. And I really do believe one of those reasons is this question of we haven't practiced what it is we do want, because all that we've been doing is running on essentially autopilot in terms of that, you know, whether it's been in your personal or professional life, really. Mm-hmm. So that's actually a really beautiful starting point for tonight's discussion, is to get that clarity on what it is you do want, right? So I'd love to hear from you all, like particularly, you know, Monday night, first night of the week. I'm sure there are plenty of other places that you could be right now, you know, potentially preparing your dinner, or hopefully maybe you've got someone in your household doing that for you. My fingers are crossed that I get off this call and my dinner is ready. Mm-hmm. But what is it that you're here for tonight? Like, why would you block out this time in your diary? Could you share that with me? You know, maybe pop it into the chat box, or feel free to take yourselves off mute. Just going to give everyone a little opportunity to get typing away.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure that I catch the question. Can you repeat again?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And also just to say, I know that I said at the start that I talk a lot, but I also talk fast. I don't know if you've ever met any Australians, but they talk fast. So just remind me, okay? Remind me. So the question is, why are you here tonight?
Can I, Danielle?
Yeah.
So I'll start. Maybe someone else will be not shy to continue his or her story. Talking about the same theme. So just like, I don't know what I want. And now finally, I think I know what I want, but due to my coach and mentor, because I think it's also very important to have someone who's really helping you, just like even showing you the light, or just pushing you, not pushing you in the right direction, but just showing you possibility, or trigger the thoughts in your brain, which will lead, just leads to the right road. So my special case today is like, I had a terrible day, and I wasn't planning to just like to enter your session, and I even didn't know about your session because I didn't enter this platform yet. So and then I was just like, okay, I'm just completely out of the balance because I'm walking the road I've chosen and I want to, and I have all the power and positive energy. I want to walk that road, but there are circumstances, and someone just partly killed my dream today, sort of. So I was like, okay, let's check a small world, what's there going on. And then I was like, wow, it's exactly what I want. So I've seen your webinar. I was like, okay, it's great possibility just to talk, to listen, to positive, because your picture and your resume looked very positive and inspirational and motivational. And I was like, oh, why not? It's a sign of nature. You're mute.
You at the right time as well. Like sometimes we don't know what we need. Yeah. And so what I'm hearing of what Natalia's just shared is it's, being in these spaces, sometimes almost doesn't matter what the topic is, but being in an inspirational community or having a bit of connection or a chance to just kind of share how your day went can trigger those thoughts, can put you back into, even if it's just a better frame of mind, to get some clarity on some of that stuckness or busyness that's showing up. Thanks.
Which part of Australia are you from, Danielle?
Oh my God, I'm from everywhere. So my family is spread all over, but I grew up in the tropics in far north Queensland. Yeah.
Okay, I've been traveling a lot in Australia ages ago.
Yeah, it's a really, really beautiful place. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sorry.
No, not at all. Is anyone else ready to go?
Good evening, dear Danielle. I wasn't from the start of the webinar here, so I struggled to catch up with the conversation, but now I understand what we were talking about. So let me introduce myself. I'm Eleftheria. I'm from Greece, pretty far from Australia. And I'm here because I saw this was a book club communication. So I'm a person who likes reading books so much. I literally read about 4 books right now of any kind. It doesn't matter. I just adore gaining knowledge and meeting new people. And the only thing I have to say about you is that you spread really positive energy, even if I just met you for about 4 minutes now. And I really love to meet you more, and you and the other people in this group. Well, my interests are about books, meeting new people, music, trips, cooking, anything creative.
Thank you so much for sharing. And absolutely, tonight was really pitched as a kind of a book club, centered around this discussion of freedom from busy as well. So I'm curious, as a book lover, would you want to share anything that's really lighting you up at the moment, or what you're reading?
Well, before a couple of hours today in the midday, I completed reading an online book. You can't buy it somewhere actually, named Inspired Style. It's about image consulting and upgrading your look, your manners, about clothes, about how you should act in your workplace, and all these beautiful things about personal upgrade. Because I'm actually studying image consulting and hairdressing at the moment, I'm more interested in this type of books at this time of my life. So I'm also reading the story of Coco Chanel at the moment. I don't remember the actual title in English because it is translated in Greek. So let me see. I don't know the word. This is a book, if you can see.
It's beautiful. Share it with us. Share the title in Greek. That's fine.
This is called Antithesi. I don't really remember the word in English, excuse me, but I can take a look for that online later and share with you.
That's beautiful.
Okay. I also like reading about geography, and I read many encyclopedias I have at home, and learning about places I want to visit after quarantine. Because, yeah, I let my mind travel a little bit virtually or by studying, because at the moment we all struggle to go anywhere. So, yes.
I love, so some of what I've picked up and what you've shared in terms of, the books that you're loving at the moment, but also like maybe what you love about books. I could be right or wrong, and I imagine, like, I'd love to hear from others as well, as like, what do you go there for? Which, what, Eleftheria, did I say that correctly?
Yes, Eleftheria. In English, it means liberty. It's the Greek word.
Eleftheria, beautiful. Is for a sense of inspiration. So like, for you, it could be that the style, or like something that you're learning at the moment. And I love that phrase that you use, like, to let my mind travel. And there are so many different ways that we can, I guess, tap into that sensation. And books are an absolutely magical way to do that. One of my, absolute joys, really, and what I teach is to how to reconnect or reclaim your joy. And I really do believe that, books for me is definitely one of those pathways, whether it's fiction or non-fiction. I tend personally to read a lot of self-help books. You might have picked that up about me already. But I do believe it's because of that sense of inspiration. It's when you can hear someone else's story, there's just these pieces of it that resonate with us and touch a chord with us, that can either, inspiration doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm all motivated and energized right now. Inspiration can be a moment of clarity. Inspiration can be, I never thought of things that way. Inspiration could be, suddenly feel a little bit more human, because if they experience that, maybe it's okay that I'm experiencing this. It could make you laugh. Like, there's so many different ways to access that. So I love that that's, one way in which you're diving into not just your learning, but actually tapping into a place of inspiration as well. So it's so important.
Let me tell you that I think I agree with you, of course, at all you said, but I want to add that inspiration to me is grabbing any opportunity to do something out of it. I mean, that we have to see the positive side of the things. For example, here we are in a strict lockdown in my country, and I see this as an opportunity to self-discover and upgrade, do something good for me, for my home, and for my family. I had the great opportunity, and I feel really grateful that I found the book, The Secret. You probably know that it's about law of attraction. I read that it changed my mind 100%. I'm now a new person from what I was before that book. And I totally recommend it to anybody that hearing us right now. And also The Magic, the next one, is life-changing too. It helps you find the positive side of yourself, of your life.
That's beautiful. I love that that it had that effect on you. I'm curious who else was tuning in tonight, really from this angle of like, let's, book club. I'm here. I want to talk about this side of things, or anything else. Let me double check. I haven't missed anything in the chat. Yes, Louise Hayes books are good. Yeah. So so Robert's here for book club discussion as well. Okay, absolutely. Yeah, good suggestion. There you go. Robert's asking if we can put any titles and authors in the chat. So there we go. That would be great. Just for anything that you find, inspirational. So perhaps I can share, on the, book club side of things as well. Similarly to what you said, Eleftheria, about, it really having that impact in terms of, you use the words changed my life. And I'm curious if anyone else has had that experience with a book, with a, maybe a webinar, even, some sort of discussion where you're like, oh, this one thing really helped me shift your energy, or, it could be as simple as reading. I mean, how many of those short little memes and things like that are out there? That's, in terms of like, sometimes it's just a 30-second thing that can really boost that mood. For me, I really, through some of these most kind of stuck, burnt out periods and wanting to consider things like, how do I change careers, or don't I, or do I move countries or not, or all of these sorts of things, I have really reached out to all of the books on my bookshelf for these discussions. And so when it came to, my experience last year very much came to a point where a very dear friend of mine, a mastermind buddy, essentially reached out to me and said, you already have a book inside of you. And I host a podcast and have lots of conversations where it's just like short little snippets, sharing from my own life or sharing tips and tools I use with my clients. I also interview incredible guests. And she just shared this with me and saying, you know what, you have a story to tell, and you've already shared it. This could be really easy. And for me, that was really an opening. I hadn't looked at it in that way before. I hadn't even thought I had a book or had a story to kind of share in that particular capacity. And it was her, I guess, insight and her reflecting that back to me that opened me up to a whole new way of thinking and feeling. And, sometimes that's all we need. And I imagine, this might be a very strange place to take a book club discussion, but I can honestly say that all of you here tonight tuning in for this kind of conversation, you all have a story to share as well. And, it may not come out in the form of a book. It may not come out in, even just being here and sharing a snippet, of why you're here and what you wanted to get out of this evening is your way of kind of sharing some of that. It is a way of you sharing some of that joy with everyone else, helping us all feel more human, or helping us potentially walk away feeling more inspired. Does that resonate for anyone? Have you had an experience like that already, or do you feel that coming onto these sessions? I can see that Sunny just took themselves off mute. Was that on purpose? I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, I did. No, because you just reminded me, when I started my career in marketing, it was really more of as a job. And then I stumbled upon this book in a thrift shop. It's one of the best books in marketing, The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. And it had a cute cover. So I decided, well, it's there. It's just for what, $2? I'll pick it up and maybe I'll learn something. And in the beginning of my career, it wasn't really what I went to school for. I was in broadcast communications. So the whole marketing thing was just like a stopgap measure for supposedly my gig as a news anchor. And so I read the book and I realized it's a lovely book, and it made me view my career in a totally different light, and I fell in love with my career. And 25 years later, I'm still stuck in marketing. So for me, that was the book that encouraged me. Oh, I don't have a video. It seems weird. I'm speaking without a video. But for me, it encouraged me to delve more into business books, something that I didn't do before. And I found that it was actually something that I enjoyed doing. So usually I would have like 4 books on my bedside table, one trashy novel that doesn't really do for the brain, but I like it. A gossip magazine, yes, another trash, but and then 2 business books, which I alternate. So it was really the love for reading that encouraged me to do that. And I'm very thankful that I found that book, because otherwise I would not have read all the business books that I was able to enjoy, books that I never read in business school, or books that they never told us to read in business school. I mean, it's great if you get an MBA, but sometimes, reading books is not all covered by it. So
I love what you've shared, Sunny. Thank you so much, because what I'm hearing is actually this theme of, okay, naturally I'm a joy coach, I'm going to hear this, but actually what people have shared so far is that there is this theme of books connecting us to our place of joy, or opening us up to that channel to feel really good.
yeah.
So it's a really powerful, I guess, tool. Yeah. That we don't necessarily think to look for. I'm curious, just before I'm going to kind of tap into this point on a moment. I just want to read a short passage from my book that really speaks to this point of joy. But I'm curious how you choose your book.
Oh, sometimes by cover. Like if it looks pretty, I'll get it, and then I smell the book. Ooh, it smells nice. So then I get it. But I read books in a weird way. I read from the back first. If the back or the ending is interesting, whether it's a business book or whatever, if it's interesting in the back, then I go to the first page. And then if the first chapter or the first 2 pages are interesting, then I jump to the middle. And then if I find the middle interesting, then I buy the book and I read the whole book.
I love that so much. So I imagine you all have a very different approach in terms of choosing those books. And sometimes what I hear from people, particularly when, book lovers tend to be people who really enjoy learning. Would you all agree that you love learning, or you love extending your knowledge and growing and expanding in that way? You wouldn't really be on a webinar like this if you didn't. Like, let's be honest. Sometimes the flip side of that can push us into this other dynamic, which is kind of the not just the high achievement, but the overachievement, where we are, leaning into that learning and growth because we feel that we have to, or that we should, or if I were to do this, then people will look at me a different way if I can show up in this particular way. What made me think of this, or tap into it, Sunny, is a personal story I really related when you shared about the textbook. I think about all of the textbooks I read throughout my previous career, and the thought of picking up a textbook now just absolutely bores me. It feels heavy, it feels stressful, it feels strained. Now, this is me personally. Everyone is going to have a completely different experience. There's no right or wrong here. But what I learned over time, it was because I was approaching it in this way of, I must read this from front to cover and do the best I possibly can and take it all in. And therefore, it was almost like this ability to prove my worth. How I read books now is completely different. One of my mentors almost gave me permission for this in a session once. I don't even know that he knows that he did this. It was a big group session. And he essentially said to kind of treat your bookshelf, as a library of inspiration, right? To dip in and out as you need to. And sometimes that means reading a couple of pages and not necessarily needing to read it all. And so sometimes I literally stare at my bookshelf and I'm like, well, what do I need to hear right now? What am I, in the mood for? What's going to make me feel good? And feeling good sometimes does feel scary. Like, I know that's a weird thing to say, but like sometimes being able to expand yourself into feeling good is a little bit of those like growth nerves to begin with.
For me, it was reading that first business book encouraged me and motivated me to read more business books and articles, because even if I went to grad school, I mean, you get stuck in that 4-year, 5-year thing. And then most of the books that you use there and the case studies that you use there are only applicable for that time when you took your, you know what I mean? When you took your degree at that time, it's applicable there. It wouldn't be applicable now, especially now, given the whole pandemic thing. Business changes and business models change. So what I learned from MBA school, a lot of it I can't do now because of the restrictions of COVID. So this is where the whole business book attitude has helped me, because I can't go back to my teacher and say, you know what, the thing you taught me 7 years ago is totally useless now.
You're having to see it in a whole new light and really approach it from this different perspective.
Yeah, and it encouraged me to go on websites like the Harvard Business Review, which I would never have touched before. But now it's like I bookmark everything that I need to learn. And then when I have time, I go on it and I read it. And it's very helpful, because for somebody like me with that career, it keeps me in touch with the current business scenario. It puts me in tune with all the business trends. And if you're in marketing and you're not in tune with the current business trends, then you don't have a career.
Yeah. So it kind of keeps you in touch with things as well. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious from others who have been listening in so far, because I feel like that there's a little bit of a mixed dynamic tonight in terms of some of you really hear from that kind of like, let's just talk about, let's talk about books, let's dive into that. Some of you hear from that angle of like just connection and community and like, let's get some inspiration. And some of you may be kind of really picking up on this theme or message of like, maybe feeling a bit overwhelmed or stressed in your current environment right now, and how to maybe come back to that place of feeling really good. Tell me a little bit more in the chat box, like, what else it was that you were really wanting to get out of the session and conversation tonight. What part of that appeals to you? Is it a bit of a mixture of everything? I'd love to hear.
Can I speak? Because I'm just a bit tired of the day, because I ran for everything, and for business I was quite overloaded. So instead of typing, I just speak. Okay.
Perfect.
So for me, it was even fine the direction that was already taken. So that means that the question that you share are interesting, and I think that I myself, but even the other, can also share their point of view. And for what maybe is not directly linked to the question, is maybe the aspect free from breezy, let me say. That means that sometimes I feel a bit the pressure or the stress, because I would think that I'm not able to do all the things that I would do in a day.
Yeah.
And I would say that for this, sometimes what I do is I write all the things that I have to do, and then I delete the row, so that at the end of the day, when I check at this, I realize that at the end, maybe I didn't do everything, but I did many things. And sometimes if I don't do this, I'm not realized, I don't have awareness about that. So I think that this is something good. So free from busy, some topics that you can share from your book would be interesting as well. And well, I can even reply by myself to the question that you already did, or I don't know if someone else wishes to add something instead of typing. For me, it's the same.
Thank you, Carla. I love that you shared this experience you have in terms of like handling some of the busyness and stress, like that your approach is to, write everything down, but actually tick things off in terms of, no, the thing that I heard that was really different and that I really want to acknowledge you for is a lot of the time when I hear from very stressed, overwhelmed people, it's this constant to-do list. It's never ending. There's always something. I'm never getting anything done. What I loved is that there was almost this distinction in what Carlo shared in terms of, I tick it off so that I can notice that I actually did get lots done. And this is really an important, distinction, because I think a lot of the time we focus on what's not happening, what we're not getting. This goes back to what I shared at the start of the conversation in terms of if you're looking for work-life balance, if you're looking for inspiration, but all you can say is what you don't have right now, it's not going to get you closer to what you do want. So I just wanted to acknowledge that slight distinction in terms of focusing. Like, what am I focused on? I'm focused on, hey, I actually did get some stuff done, and like, let's feel good about that. Let's acknowledge that. I'm curious if everybody, just on this kind of topic of busy for a moment, maybe if you just want to share in the chat box just a number, like on a scale of 0 to 10, how busy you feel right now. And maybe your word is stressed, overwhelmed, even just fuzzy in your head. Like, I don't know how else to describe that, like lack of clarity. Just, yeah, thanks, Carla, for being so honest. I love that. This is really a starting point in terms of that definition. In really moving yourself. You've got a lot of 9s coming up. I'm not surprised, particularly at a time where I know that we're all based in different countries with various different restrictions going on, but there is a lot of change going on, to say the least, right? A lot of uncertainty. And one of the things I've noticed with a pattern of busyness, or insert the thing that you do, people please, numb out to TV, whatever, is it's a way to kind of reduce that feeling of uncertainty, of too many unknowns. If I can just do this thing called busy, I'm going to feel safe and comfortable, and like I know how to do busy. So it's really interesting to just start from that point of acknowledging where you're at and what kind of level that is in. 1000%. Thanks, Sunny. Yeah, New York City. Doesn't even feel like I'm on lockdown. Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people throughout this, past 12 plus months. Just because we're at home, or just because there's less things that we can, in quote marks, do, doesn't mean that the busyness magically disappeared. And in a lot of ways, it's been amplified. Yeah.
I'm actually busier now than before the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not surprised. So I want to share a little piece from my book into, kind of book club style, just to kind of hone in on this point that, I guess the link between busy and joy. Okay, so it's right up in the introduction, but this is kind of the premise or the inspiration between, for me wanting to share this story, but more so than that, the way that I wrote this book is really bite-sized pieces. Like, you could pick up and read 2 or 3 pages, because so often when we try and tackle these big issues in our life, the overwhelm, the stress, the career changes, we try and the expression that just came up is like, we try and gobble them whole. Like, I know that sounds a bit odd, but we try and just think that we need to resolve it immediately. Like maybe if you've got a long to-do list like Carla, you feel like you have to do it all. And if you don't do it all, then you haven't achieved anything. And I really kind of flip it on its head and believe that we need to make things as easy as possible, make them as small as possible. There's a lot of science behind small, consistent steps make for much more long-term sustainable habit formation. So here's what I say in my book. I say, I believe that so many of us are holding tight to busy as a way to feel more in control of our lives. If we're busy, we don't have to feel the stress, exhaustion, or disconnection that's nagging at us. But if we're holding back on facing our discomfort, we're also holding back on our deep sense of joy. So it's my calling to remind you that your deep sense of joy can lead you back to yourself. It's in our joy, our fun, and our pleasure in life where we truly come alive. So can anyone resonate with that in terms of your own way of, I guess, holding back on not wanting to feel some of the exhaustion or even some of the confusion that might be showing up for you in your life right now? Anyone resonate? Or if your experience is something different, I would also love to hear, like, just to, reiterate, there's no right or wrong here. Yeah. Okay. Now, I don't know if typing is a little bit slow or not. So I'd just like to give a few. Do you guys know about the reactions in Zoom? Like if you don't want to type, you can just give me a thumbs up or a, you know, a smiley face or a yes, no as well, just so you know. Yeah. So in terms of, I know that some of you have written, thanks Natalia, in terms of that feeling of, you know, what's the word, like wanting to reduce the busyness or wanting to reduce the stress, what is it that you're really craving? I'm curious. Like, why would we even have a conversation about it?
You ask us, what do we do to relieve our stress, if I understand well?
Yeah, I guess I'm asking a slightly nuanced version of that question, which is, you know, really getting deeper, which is not just what do you do, but why do you want to reduce it in the first place?
Well, I think we all have to pay attention to the positive side of the things, as I mentioned before. And if we say, well, it doesn't matter if this bad thing happens to me or a little bit negative, I am happy because I have this. For example, I have a food to eat, I have electricity, I have a warm bed. I don't know. We have, I think, a million reasons to be happy each day. And I think this is what we have to focus on, especially during the most difficult times, such as during this pandemic or anything else. And I think we can move on after that. We can, of course, upgrade ourselves, and we can also help other people too. Because if we give a smile to someone, can you think about it? It is probably the only positive thing that could happen to him during this day. And this is something I learned through The Secret. And since I started practicing that, for example, even if I just go to the grocery stores, I give a smile and say thanks to the salesman, because I think we have to offer happiness, to offer positivity, to gain positivity back, and to upgrade, to feel healthier, to, I don't know, to make good things in general, because it is a circle. Love attracts love, smile attracts smile, and if you have any type of problem, even if it is a health issue, if we focus on the other good things about our health, it automatically becomes better. And I say that because I lived that. You know, I had a kind of a problem with my health, and when I focused on the other things, it improved dramatically in just a week, believe it or not. So I can say it for sure, it really works. We can also say affirmations about ourselves. Even if we don't focus at anything else that is good on us, we can focus on our problem. For example, if someone wants to lose weight, he can say, I have the body of a model, and really feel that. And I am just the way I always wanted to be, and I feel beautiful, and everybody likes me. And this is all we have to do to instantly feel better. So this is something I recommend to all of you. And excuse me, I may be over talked about all this thing, law of attraction, but since it's something I'm currently reading much about, I thought that it would be nice to share it with you, since I think you like books. Not I think, I'm sure you like books, since we are here talking about this thing. And I think we all pretty much want to upgrade. So this is something I like talking about.
Thank you for sharing that, and for just reminding us that, you know, I have this saying that I say is like, joy is not just a nice to have, it's a necessity. And, you know, if anyone is listening to what Eleftheria's just shared and thought like, yeah, but like I'm having a really crappy day and that's not going to work for me because I don't feel like smiling at strangers today. You know, like I want to acknowledge that because there's this really important conversation that gets missed out when we start talking about joy. And that conversation is very much about, you know, sometimes it can be easy to think that joy equals happily skipping down the street and gleefully smiling all the time. And that's just not an accurate representation of our life. Okay. I'm not talking about this construct of something called toxic positivity, which is, you know, I'm just going to give a very mini definition here, but in my definition, it's like slap a smile on your face all the time and don't show how you're really feeling. What's really important and part of this, you know, message that I think Eleftheria really like, you know, sharing with us as well is like what you said is like when you can really feel that, when you can actually embody joy. For me, I know that sometimes my embodiment of joy looks like really calm, really quiet, really centered. And those can be my most joyful places that I can go to. It's not about pretending about how you feel. That is just not going to work. That is going to keep you stuck in your numbing behavior. And if that's busy for you or stress for you or overachieving for you, you know, like there's lots of different things, but that'll keep you stuck in that place. So my invitation for you all tonight in terms of really coming back to this place of inspiration to connect more to your joy as well is to, you know, also acknowledge that. So Brene Brown has this incredible quote that I, you know, share all the time. And she says that if you don't know who Brene Brown is, please go Google her immediately, and talking about books, go read all of her books too. You know, she's, in very short, she's a researcher and she knows a lot about emotions. She says that we cannot selectively numb our emotions. And then she goes on to share essentially that if we are numbing our pain, we are also numbing our joy. And so I feel like this is a trap that we fall into in terms of thinking positively or getting to, you know, like making sure that I feel happy all the time. That in itself can actually be a block to acknowledging where you're at. So it's okay to feel a little bit of stress. It's okay to feel some of the frustration or the exhaustion that's going on right now. Because if you only block it, you're also blocking this other end of the emotional spectrum. And another really cool fact and trivia, and I talk about, this is a chapter in my book where I talk about like why emotions really matter, like why it's so important to get to know them. And I talk about this, you know, fact that I learned that the emotional reaction in your body, like the chemical reaction, literally only lasts for 90 seconds until it shifts, changes, transforms, you know, exits, you know, molds into something else. And we can all count to 90 and sit in that frustration or sit in that busyness or stress, you know, stress, and allow our body to go through that natural, you know, reaction that is actually our stress response, but it will actually finish that circuit. So I just wanted to share that if you're thinking like, yeah, but I don't feel like being happy today, or you're feeling like, yeah, but like I'm smiling on the outside, but on the inside I'm crying. I just want you to know that, you know, just to kind of come at this from a place of like all of the emotions are beautiful and part of your life experience. And the more that you can accept them in, the more you are actually going to expand into this place of joy, deep, sustainable joy, the kind of joy that continues to fuel you no matter what kind of day you're having. Does that make sense? Does that resonate? Are there questions?
What you said about taking time to feel the stress, like for me, the books, like today, it's a hellish Monday because it's a Monday. And so even if I work from home right now because of the pandemic, it's just one phone call after the other. It's one email, one Zoom. So I end up getting really cranky, and not even coffee, like cups of coffee could get me through that. So like what I did now is to just shut down and go to a nice place, which is like a book, in this case, the book chat, or I would go and just lock myself for a few minutes and read a book. Because even if it's a trashy book, it takes me away from the whole scenario of I'm in stress. And then I kind of think of somebody else on that book oh, they're having a worse day than I am. So it's fine. Like currently, I have I have Obama's book. So when I'm feeling cranky, I open a page randomly. It's not like one page after the other that I read it. I just randomly open it and I read something about what he writes. Oh, thank God I'm not the president of the United States, because he's having a really bad day.
Yeah, it's this place of humanity, and remembering that we all experience all of the emotions all the time. Yeah. And sometimes when you're stuck in it, you can create a bit of a loop. Sorry, I spoke over you, Sunny. Keep going.
Oh, I said it gives you like a break, because sometimes it's difficult to just do the whole mind over matter thing and say to yourself, you know what, somebody else is probably having a worse day than I. For me, I have to go and read it or watch it to make it real that, yeah, he's having a worse day than I am.
I think so. What that's actually doing, if anyone's experienced something similar to Sunny, is it's coming back to this point we were saying before in terms of like really feeling into it. So this is why storytelling is so important and why books are so important, right? Because quite often they are stories, and what it helps us do is step into the emotional experience. So you might not be ready to jump into the full emotion of your own stress, but you can certainly resonate with someone else's story of it.
Yeah.
And whether you like it or not, that's creating this kind of chain reaction in your body that you are feeling it on their behalf.
Yeah. And then after I read that, I go back to whatever it is that I have to do, and I'm like, zen, because somebody else has it worse than me.
Yeah, it really, I think stories can really support us to connect in with our own emotions. So you might not be conscious that that's what you're doing, but it is helping you kind of complete that stress response cycle. And what that, I've talked about the 90-second rule before. What that does is it kind of dissipates it so that you can go step into whatever it is you were doing before with a clearer head, or, more grounding or something like that. One of the things that I often, I guess one of my missions is to bring this point into the busyness and stress conversation, is this point about joy, and that we actually tend to block our joy because it feels a little bit scary. Joy feels uncertain to us because we're not used to allowing ourselves to go there often. We're so used to just kind of, I guess, holding it all together in some way. So my, invitation to you all as well, stepping out of the session tonight, is to get really curious in your lives about how you could practice feeling good. So I'm not saying that like don't feel busy and stressed, because like that's important emotion too. But what I'm saying is you're probably a bit more experienced at that. So like spend some time actually stepping into cultivating feeling good. So as you said, Sunny, like I can read the story and like feel someone else's stress.
Yeah.
Well, I'll encourage you to also pay attention to reading the stories that feel really good. Or for example, we could literally do it right now in 30 seconds, taking a moment to ask yourself, when was the last time I felt really good? You don't have to answer in the live discussion, but just answer to yourself right now. When was the last time I felt really good? Maybe it was this morning, maybe it was last week, maybe it was 5 years ago on a sunny beach in Mexico, California, whatever. Now ask yourself, great, I'm so pleased to hear that. Ask yourself how you knew that was the moment to go to. How did you know that that was a moment that felt good?
Because I remember I lived next door to a library, and so despite the pandemic, I can just get any book that I like.
Yeah, so you kind of have that memory. And I think I've seen like these very slight, subtle smiles come across those who are on video right now. I would encourage you all to just kind of maybe take a little bit more time after this call to just sit with it for, even a minute, to notice that your body is actually changing. Even in remembering that thing, you're feeling just a tiny bit different. Maybe it's a 1%. Maybe for those of you who are like a 9 in terms of busyness, maybe you kind of feel a little bit more removed from that 9, and you're more of like an 8 maybe now, because you've just kind of sat in a different emotion. I don't think that we practice feeling good enough. And it sounds odd and counterintuitive because, of course, everyone wants to feel good. But I don't think we're spending enough conscious time building the joy muscle. And so my invitation to you all is, the next time you feel busy, stressed, lacking inspiration, going to your bookshelf to pick up something to just kind of tune into, I want you to get curious with yourself about what would make you feel good. How could I practice feeling joy? How could I experience just a moment that feels really good right now? And I promise you, if you're struggling to come up with something, I'm not asking you to take on a mammoth 3-hour journaling workshop task. Like, this could take 30 seconds. And maybe that's a promise you can make to yourself daily or weekly to begin with, every Monday evening at 7 p.m. Practice for 30 seconds to begin with. Remembering when you last felt good, or doing something. If you already know that it feels great to go to visit the library, go and do that thing. But if you're not sure, because you're feeling a bit distanced from it, start small. And this is really another principle that I share in the book, is like, make it really easy. Yeah, the science actually backs up making things easy. Isn't that amazing? So I know that we're pretty much spot on time. I'm more than happy to hang out for a little bit longer, because I do want to hear a little bit of feedback in terms of, if you what's coming up for you. I have seen a few nods going on. Do you have any questions that you want to ask me? I'm an open book. Pardon the pun.
I'm just wondering if people do the same thing, or if you do the same thing. Do you mark your books?
Sorry.
Mark, underline, you mean, sorry?
Do you mark your books? Like, if I'm reading a book and there's like a line that I really like, I highlight it. So, I mean, if people borrowed my books, they'd probably hate my books because there's like all sorts of lines.
I do the same.
You do the same, Carlo?
I mean, I underline book.
Yeah.
I put some symbol like exclamation in part of the book that I wish to read again. And then it depends on the type of the book. So in the past, up to 1 year, I was used to read a lot of soft skill book. So just to say 12 area, I didn't feel that no book changed me really in my life, but I have a couple of books that really helped me a lot. I would think that helped me a lot. They didn't change my life, but helped me a lot. And I read one book that was from Beppe Cervegnini. He's an Italian writer writing from newspaper. He writes some books, especially about Italian broads and so on. And basically, it was that type of book was like a biography by him. And he said that he was used to write on each page of each book the date in which he started to read the book, and even to write in the first page of the first white blank page of the book, even some part of the book that was really interesting for him. And after some years, when he took the book again, he would open and see when he read in the past this book and that impression that he had. And I think that that was interesting. And I make especially this, meaning to highlight, to underline for soft skills book. When 1 year ago, when the pandemic started, I said, okay, I had a couple of books that really helped me a lot, and I thought I will read again. So I took that as a chance. So during the first part of the pandemic, I read again those books. And with some of the books, I read even quite faster because I just read the book, the line that I underline. That helped me a lot more faster. After that, I said I completely changed. I said I will no more read soft skill book. I wish to change because it's getting a bit heavy this lockdown period. And I started to read some stories. And I was used to read the stories before, but just started during holidays and mainly can follow it. While during the pandemic, what I did, and this is similar to you, Sanne, that I choose the book to move in another place, but a place that I loved and I could not be now. So basically, I love skiing. I could not go to ski. So I choose books that were from Iceland for Nordic author, in stories in which you feel the cold, you feel the winter, the snow, and you feel the Christmas. And I really love Christmas. So it was a very good chance, very good choice. And the last book that I read was really funny because basically it was like a story about 1 year. So he started with the winter with a very hard condition. The title is The Heart of the Man. Is interesting because it speaks about death, love, and winter, and it was interesting in this period. It was something like 1 year. So basically it started with winter and it arrives in spring, summer. So it was quite on the same time with the actual environment condition, let me say, or time. Yeah.
I love that. You were really tapping into the feelings that you wanted to feel during this time.
Absolutely, yes.
Give me the feeling of winter. I want to feel that cold, you know, like.
Yeah, it helped. Yeah, it helped. I enjoyed that. And if I would say, so based on what I said, Daniel, you would understand also some type of decision that lead me to choose a book. If I should add some other, I would say that I see on Amazon the score of the people. So if it is a high rating, so if it was appreciated from many people or not, then I read shortly the summary of the book to see if it is interesting or not for me. Lately, I'm also reading some extras, but generally I don't do this. If I would be in a bookshop, maybe I would read some page, but otherwise, these are the most important thing. When I started to read the soft skill book, I take note of the suggestion of the coach. So when the coach suggested some book and I found interesting some topic of the training, I read that book that was suggested. And two books the couple of books that I really enjoyed were suggested me during one of this training. No, one of the two. The other one I choose by myself by chance, checking on Amazon. Yeah.
There's this real mixture of like letting the books find you by chance versus like going based on a recommendation and kind of traveling down this little route of what, you know, what else gets recommended along the way. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Thanks for joining us.
For you all.
So if there's no other questions, like feel free to pop them in the chat and I will answer them. Otherwise, I'm going to leave you with some questions from my book, Freedom from Busy, which you can go find all the details at freedomfrombusy.com if you're curious, if it's stray for you. But here are some questions to take away with you, okay? My invitation to you is to notice, what are those things in your life that light you up? What are the things that make you come alive, get your heart pounding, your eyes sparkling, and your energy buzzing? Maybe they're really small things. Maybe they're huge things. Whatever your things are, I want you to write them down and then begin to notice and pay attention to them. Take 30 seconds to ask yourself, where in my life am I prioritizing this? And where in my life could I welcome more of this? I promise you, when you do, that there is, that is where the ripple of change takes place. When you do feel that buzz, that heart pounding more often, when you choose joy more often than the challenges, the problems, the things that you're really stuck on or fuzzy on or don't have clarity on right now, those things will unlock in a profound way. So thank you everyone for joining in such a beautiful open discussion tonight. I really appreciate your shares, your insights. I know it was a mixed conversation. We talked about books, we talked about busy, we talked about joy. And I just want to thank you all so much for being here. And I trust that you got some insights, you got some value, and you got some inspiration.
Grazie. Thank you.
Grazie. Ciao.
Thank you for being a very positive hostess.
You're so welcome. Lovely to meet you all. Good night.